Good morning, everyone. It's a Sunday morning, and here we are once again working on 3D Internet. It's a 3D CMS. We're designed to basically be the WordPress for 3D games. So we're doing plugin development. We're working on creating the shopping cart functionality into any site that you want to do. And I've done it before, but I hadn't done it for this particular as a plugin. So I'm moving code, and I'm also working on it to make sure that you can host it on any of these open source versions. So that's the piece that I'm at, and that's where I'm joining in. So good morning, and off we go. Okay. Okay, so getting started here, what I'm doing is, first of all, when I save the Connect store, which is this little piece right here, it needs to close out and go back to this particular menu, which is right here. And I need to take a look and see which menu this is and see if we can't call it, properly. Let's see, we have back 4, we're going to find out. Admin menu 4 is the one that's going to load up. And I think I have a way already in here to do that, but I'm going to double check. So let's see, find in files. Let me go in here, find all. When I run back 4 there, I am telling it to do, oh, that's all fine. Back 4, here it is. I tell it to hide admin menu and then show admin menu 1 now. Well, that's all fine, but that's not the proper. Back to edit. That's the one I want to do. So I'm going to do hide menu items, and then I'm going to do back to edit. No, it's not back to edit. It's back to tools. No, it would be back to options. Okay, that's why I don't have it, because I don't have one that actually goes back to objects. Okay, let's see. For now, you know what? We're going to go back to edit for the moment. Back to tools. Which one is that one? Let me find out. Find in files. We're going to double check, see where this one's at, and see if this is the one that we want. Back to tools is admin menu 4. Actually, that's the one. That's the one we're going to go with. Okay, so back to tools. Let's see. Get back here. Go there, and we have back to tools. Well, then technically when I hit number 4, I should go back to tools. That should be up here too. That goes there, there. No, actually let's undo that. That isn't where it needs to go. It needs to stay where it was. Okay, so these are the 2 pieces that I need, and because I have them in this order, I should be able to add them right up in here. Shopping. There it is. And you know what? I do not need to do that step because that was already being done. Now, what I noticed is that it does save the function. It just didn't know where to go afterwards. So if I do this, F5. And loading into the screen, we get app there. And if I do store settings and I set the store, save, and it pops me back to this menu. Now the other part I want to test is when I click on this, it's not loading it. So there's something still kind of a little haywire with that. We're going to check that. Edit, whoops, not edit 3D building. Let's go to, no, hang on. I want to go to options and settings. That's what I want. When I click on this right here, 3D store settings, this should trigger get stores drop down building. and it should have been loading it. So we're going to look for get stores drop down in our code. We're just fixing a couple things before we move on from this part. Get stores drop down, and that's right here. We're putting in the mold group. Okay, so this should have called this, and it should have loaded up the drop down list. So we're going to check a few things here. That loads the drop down, but it did not set connect store. That's the one it needs to do, because it did load the drop down list. It did not set the connect store. So from here, it should do building community. There's my problem. When it goes to connect store, we need that to pass the mold group. And the mold group needs to, in here, we have the community, building, and things. So we're getting back the value, but right here, it's going to be one of those, it's going to be one of those different pieces based on which one you select. So if you select that, then it now should give it the proper piece, since we're passing the mold group right there. Okay, so let's give it a shot. Do this, console, and options and settings, 3D store setting, and it's not connected. So let's track a couple things and see what we're actually getting here. I want to pass okay, so I'm going to check, make sure wtw log for console log, and I'm going to send it. I want to see if the mold group comes through first. Mold group equals plus that, and then I'm going to check it a second time at the end of the function, because I may need to pass it into here. I just want to know, did it get this far? And I can always pass it as part of the function that it starts up here, which is fine. And then finally, the mold group here, the store ID. Let's find out if we actually have a store ID at this point, which means paste this, and we're going to say store ID equals, and give it the Z response store ID here. We're going to see if that actually brought back a store ID for us. Okay, so here we go. Okay, going through our paces, update that, 3D store ID, and store ID was blank. Okay, so we're not getting the store ID from this function here. Let's make sure, well, let's see. So the building, okay, building came through, so that wasn't the issue. The issue is that the store ID didn't come through. So we're going to try this function here with the, notice it has building ID. I'm just going to grab this part of it. And we're going to use this. And then I'm going to change that to building ID. Thank you. Okay, and here's our building ID right here. Okay, when we run that function, our store ID is coming up blank. Let's see what happened. Store ID, oh, it's because it is blank in the table. Something happened. It did not put that piece in place. Okay, so there's the error that we need to track down. So coming through here, when I save this, get stores drop down right here. No, actually it's get stores. When I save it, that's where it's going to be. Save connect store. This right here, oh, there's my problem. Save connect store needs to be a function of of the mold group also, because we're grabbing the value from this one when it should be grab the value from any one that it actually needs to do. There's 3 different drop downs, and we need to make sure we're grabbing the right one. So find all, save connect store. Oops, missed it by 1. Shopping, find all. Okay. Save connect store is, where's the functions? Okay, it would be this part here. Notice I have the ID save connect store. Oh, okay, so here's what I did. I put the save connect store here, change the name of the buttons that we're pushing, but I didn't pass the value here, which would give us save connect store passing mold group into it. So by changing that, now we're getting it into the right place, and we are actually passing mold group, and from there we can set mold group right here. And with that, you know what, I like using Z mold group. I know I haven't been consistent about that, but eventually I will. So, okay, so now that pulls the value from the particular drop down, because there's 3 different drop downs. Then it saves it, and we should be getting a store ID now. And when that's done, it'll pop it back to the menu, and we should be populating the right place. So let's check that one more time. Okay, and options and settings, 3D settings. We set that to 3D store, click save, and first thing we're going to check is making sure that it now has a value. So we were able to save it. Notice that's our one with our building ID. And then finally, because there's a value in there now, if I click on it again, yes, it found it, and we recover that place. Okay, since that's in place now we can start looking at what happens when we connect it to an actual 3D store. Or not a 3D store, when we connect that to an actual WooCommerce store. We're going to use the data from that store connection, and we're going to make the connection and see what we get. Don't need that anymore. This part here, when I check that, see we get the value in there, we're good to go. Okay. So now one of the pieces that I need to open up, I'm going to get rid of this stuff for now, and actually it's going to be http3d.net. This is my dummy store, for lack of a better words. This particular one has a bunch of different values in here. When we're logged in, we can go to the admin of it, and it's a typical brand new install of WooCommerce store. From here, what we have is we have WooCommerce. Okay, I loaded this program called WalkTheWeb. Now this is the plugin that I created already that's available. What I'm going to be doing is, instead of making it where you can only host a website on this particular 3D WalkTheWeb.com, I need to set this up to be able to communicate back and forth and allow you to set up sites on any server. So we have a couple different pieces. I'm going to focus still on the 3D site today, not so much on this site, but I do want to see where I'm getting this information, and I'm going to be connecting to the, there's some, what do you call them? Well, there's some JSON calls we're going to be doing to there. So I need to double check where we're doing that and the paths that I use, and then we're going to be pulling the information from those various connections. For starters, just so we can see it, under WooCommerce settings, there are advanced And under the advanced, we have, okay, WooCommerce to Con, Legacy API, Webhooks, REST API. We want the REST API. And notice I've created a handful of different connections. They're read-only. We do not need to write back to this direction, so it keeps WooCommerce secure. We're only reading the data. We're only pulling the different items to go here. So I know I have those set up. And from there, I'm able to pull them and use them from this other site. With that said, let's go through a couple of these pieces because there's a gap now. Before, I was only allowing buildings to do it. Now I have it for things, buildings, and communities. That's why you're seeing me change this mold group setting in a lot of pieces. At the same time as I'm going through them and fixing them, we're able to, well, there's quite a few places where we're fixing that, and I'm going to need to pull the information from a certain direction to be able to use it. So coming in here, we have the stores, we have the drop downs. This is all good stuff. Edit store, I'm not worried about that. Set product. Okay, we're going to go through some of these pieces. I'm going to put a product on the page, and then we're going to double check and see where we need to grab the information, follow the code, and adapt things as we go. So the first thing I want to do in this scene, and this one is a building. I started easy. We're going to start with building, and then we're going to expand it to be a community and a thing. So I'm going to start here standing just kind of in the middle. We'll set the starting position here so it's always directly in front of us. And now I'm going to edit the building. And I'm going to add, oops, sorry, it's not a building block, web object. And I want to put, could start with something simple like a store sign. Store product is quite a bit more information. Let's start with the store sign. And the first thing is, of course, it gives us an error because I expected that it doesn't know how to work with this particular product. I've already changed a couple things in here, but I do not have all of the pieces in place. So I expected this, and of course, let's go find out what it is. Set mode's default position X is not defined. Oh, okay. We need to pass a couple more values into our function. Case. We're going to get set new modes defaults. Turns out that there were a couple of pieces that I had set in the other parts, and I want to make sure we're getting the same thing. So we're going to go here, and there's our set new mode default. And we have position XYZ and rotation Y. That's a common thing across every one of these pieces. But notice I also have image ID, image path. There's a number of pieces that are used by these functions, and I need to get that from the main function, which is in basic molds. No, actually, it's add new molds. Form fields, let's see, set new mold defaults. Okay, set new mold defaults. This is where I have it. I'm going to go to the top of this function. We're just transferring it over so that it knows where to read these values from. We already have them pretty much set here in the top of this function. Notice get chords, and then it sets those values. Shape, we're good on that. Image path. We do not need height map path at this time. I'm going to keep that part of the position too. If I'm building a thing, then basically I build it from the center outwards, so it doesn't necessarily put it directly in front of you. Everything else automatically puts the piece directly in front of you. We're already setting all these values of all the different pieces, so that's not the issue. The only issue we had was the values that I put in here. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to bring that into my piece that I'm working on, which is the shopping, and right here. Now I have everything just like I would have if I ran that code from scratch. That kind of gives me the same variables no matter what I do. I put it all in here even though I'm only using position, rotation, and the image stuff. But I put it all in here in case somebody uses this as a pattern to do their things. Then they're able to use this whole piece. Let's see, we have shape value, which is making sure there's no spaces and making this lowercase. So that's the piece we're actually going to be using here, which is all fine. Because I said I passed shape. I'm actually okay with doing that. Shape already has it. When I pass shape, I actually do the other piece. So let me see, find in files. We're going to go back to that other part. And it is, actually that's not going to be there. It is plugins, that name, find all, and we should find one spot where it's implemented, which is here. And I'm actually going to pass the shape, not the shape value. We'll calculate the shape value, which is the name of the shape without the spaces, and it's all lowercase. That kind of gets us in the right place. And from there, we now have, we're getting there, we're getting there. Okay, so from there, what I have is we're basically creating a plugin so that we can do 3D stores from within scenes. Notice that this is like a full-on admin type way that we can create different things in the scenes. It's like doing WordPress, but yet for 3D games. So it builds it on Babylon Engine, and then we add all the different pieces in here. Okay, so from here, we are going to edit 3D building, add, oops, sorry, I keep saying building block. It's a web object which has a little more distinct design to it. We're going to do a store sign, and there we go. Now we have it the correct width. It gained in all those extra values, and that's basically a store sign. The only thing is, of course, when we create a store sign, it should have the name of our store put in here. Actually, it's the name of the building. New 3D building from scratch. That all worked. Okay, so the store sign is a good thing. We can kind of chalk that up and say, we can even set the colors on this stuff, whatever. The things work. Let's see, does it work? Our colors don't work. We'll fix that. We should be able to set the color of the outer box on this. So we're going to double check and see. You know what, I'm going to come back to that because that's kind of, just the color is one thing. The functionality of there is something else. And I want to make sure we can do both. So let's go ahead and delete the box. And the next thing I want to try to create is the store 3D sign. And there we go. We have the name of the building, and it is basically position. All these things are here. Covering type is nothing because it actually has a color placed on it. Okay, but there's no errors. That was the main part I'm checking so far. Delete that. Now the rest of them are all going to pull things from the building, from the store information that's hosted on the other site. So I kind of wanted to check those first, but now we're going to get into the bigger parts of it. Store product. This is where we start catching the different things. In this section, I already know putting the store product here, basically this is just adding the box. I think it's 90 degrees out of phase or 180 degrees, let's see. No, there's nothing on either side of this, which is okay at the moment. I kind of expected that because we have not told it what to load. I'm going to make it a little bigger. Oh, there, that's something. Okay, I know what it did. What it is there's different types of boxes. Well, first part is it did not show the different pieces here. It did not show the choices of what type of box to do for a store product. It's not it's not displaying any of those parts. So I need to double check that and make sure that we're loading that section and that it is being shown when it gets loaded. So we'll start there. I'm going to save the box for the moment, and when I refresh this page, I kind of want to see what I get. Okay, so that's the box. If I right click it, now see, we didn't get anything here, so that's where I'm going to start. Okay, shopping, we did get an error on load mold form, cannot set property checked of null. Okay, something didn't get loaded into place, and that's fine because that's the part we're going to start with. What we have is under shopping, there's a section down here, and it is edit mold page. That should add these pieces to the page. When I do it right, that's at scripts, that's at, I want to see make sure I've loaded that piece. There it is, edit mold page. It's part of edit mold, and that should be showing up on the page as soon as I do that. We're going to track that down and find out why it didn't add it and fix that first. So okay, so with that, it's edit mold is the name of the piece, and we have in molds, we have edit mold right here. So it should be coming up. I'm going to put a couple lines around it just so I know on the page where it's actually happening, and then after we solve it, we'll take these back off. But for the moment, I kind of just want to know this is where I expect something to show up there, and that's the function it calls to get it. We're going to run through a few things, double check it, and see why that didn't happen. Reload the page. I want to see if it's actually physically there and it didn't show, or if it's straight out isn't part of it. So we're going to go right here. We're going to select right there, and notice HR, and then HR. Okay, it didn't load that section at all. So we're going to double check that in the code and find out where we're going here. Okay, so we have get add menu divs, find in files. We're going to first see that it loaded it properly, and then we're going to go from there and double check that it can show the different pieces. I want to make sure if there was any access required, if it got blocked there, or if it just had a problem with where it's coming through. Div form location and form location. Okay, so from here, let's first check a couple values and see that we have what we think we have at this point. This is kind of like halfway between the two functions. So kick it out to the console log. Okay. And let's see, what do we have here? I want to show length is equal to, and we're going to put the count of this will tell me how many items we have in here to be put on the page. So that should dump some number on the page and tell me that we got that far and that it loaded it properly. So let's check that. Oops, let me leave this open. Console. We're getting there, we're tracking it down. Okay, when I right click it, we knew that error's coming up, that's fine. And length equals 0, so it didn't load it. Could be an order of the loading, could be anything, but I want to double check. We're going to leave that where it's at, and this function right above it is add menu item div. This should be adding it to here. So we're going to double check. We're going to check a couple things. We're going to see, we're going to check if zFound was here, if it found it already in the database, or if it tries to add it. And then we're going to check if it actually added it, which would have been right in this section. Okay. Okay, we should get some type of thing there that it triggered that code. Should happen back in this area. And if it happens before the length, it should have happened before the length. See, there's an issue. It didn't run that, but that still could be the fact that it, nope, it didn't run it. I want to make sure that it loaded the page properly. Okay, so this function, admin menu div, find in files, we're okay with that. It's going to be in admin menu div. Let's go back to here and add admin menu div. Okay, it goes to plugins, but over here, this is admin menu. Okay, we didn't extend this one. There's our problem. Okay, so there we need to make it part of the plugins piece. Get null def. So what's happening is it's not finding the actual function here. We're going to check it right as before this section. See how we have these ones where we just basically pass through and send them to other places? That's the kind of thing we're going to do. Submenu item and menu item form. Admin menu item. Okay, so we're going to add one that looks a lot like this. So I'm going to copy this. And then we're going to go back to the admin menu right here and to there. Copy that. Go back to plugins. Say we knew there was a piece missing. So now I just take this to here, and we're going to right here and passing the same values. Whatever we receive in here, we're just passing them right to this admin menu class so that we keep the classes in the right place for where they actually belong. And things like these plugins and the connect and the iframes ones are just pass-throughs so that it gives you the items that you need all in one place, and you don't have to memorize or try to track where each one of these items are located. So with that in place now, we should get something up here. Nope, we didn't. Let's do it twice just to make sure that it did a proper reload. Sometimes it takes twice to get it. Nope, we still didn't get that piece up here. Admin menu div, I want to make sure it's not being used more than one place here. And that one was admin menu class. Okay, so we are good on that piece. Just scrolling down through here, I doubt it's twice, but we're going to make sure anyway. Okay, so that takes care of that. I want to see when this is calling it, because what I have is if it's set, it does it. And that means that if this add admin menu item happens before we actually get the includes file, that would cause this kind of issue. We're doing it here. Actually, admin menu form, we're already in the admin menu page, which means it has to be loaded because those items all loaded. So this one should have been able to run. And if we're not getting that far, then there's something else wrong. Let's see if something's calling it. I want to make sure we're getting this called. So let's do a test and just see if that actually happens. Okay, so it's going there. Oh, now we're getting some different pieces. Okay, that's what I was expecting, and it gave us one right here. And notice if I go, oops, if I right-click this, no, we still don't have it loaded here, but let's see if it's just hidden. Let's okay, script length equals 1. Okay, it's loading a script. It's loading the wrong one. It's not a JavaScript that's supposed to load. It should be a block of text. We're getting the wrong thing. Let me check. Okay, so now we know that it's executing this, it's loading it, and it's able to drop it into the next page. So I'm going to pull these pieces. We know we're loading it, but what we're loading is wrong, and then we drop it onto the page. Get admin menu divs. Menu divs is the div data, and it should go back. Okay, so then it's what we're putting in here. Let's find out. Edit mold page. That's what we should get. We should get edit mold. Should be edit mold page. And edit mold page is this one right here. That's what we should be putting there. So there's something going on hinky in this section. I used the word hanky. Isn't that interesting? Let's find out what's going on here. Enter HTML. These errors, I'm less worried about these errors because it's telling me the wrong things loaded in that section. Oops, I don't want to click that yet. Let's right-click this to load. There we go. It loaded this section, and where we're looking is right here. We get the code there, and console log script and JavaScript there. What is it loading? Oh, it actually popped an error. That's why. Let's read the error. Undefined index form data. We got something wrong. It is in this function. Form location. Form data. That's not correct. It would be div data. That's why it was having trouble with that. The rest of these, let's see, form location is there. Div ID is there. Div data and access required. Okay, let's give that a shot. And go back to console. No errors this time. And let's see when I right click it. And let the thing catch up with me. Can I right click? There it goes. And there we go. We loaded the section we were talking about. There's some pieces here not loaded. For example, product category and product. But that is the piece I need to work on next. But notice that we do have this new section in here, display type. And what I'd probably want to do, actually that's okay. That follows the box rotation, display type. Yeah, that kind of gives it the general look of the rest of the site. This section in here, and then covering type would be afterwards. So this piece here, the part is we can start reading in these values and make sure that we have the product category and everything else right from the other site. But now, the cool part is we have this, and if I change the box display, or if I say rounded no image, or see, so those parts are all working now. So we're good on those pieces. That's another little piece that I wanted to test out. Okay, so when I click on an item, it needs to go through the process, but it needs to be able to pull and load the current categories at that time and the current product if somebody selected it, or a list of products so that they can select what item to be on there. By default, they can have an item that actually says no category selected, or they can have an item that says no product selected, and then it would randomly fill based on the store that they're pulling from. So this piece here needs to go out to the store using the API, grab the category, and then bring it back and use it on the site. So the first part is we need to track when we open this box, we need to look at what it's doing and basically pre-populate those lists. And if one's already selected, then we need to, have it selected still. Okay, so two parts of this. And let's see. Okay, so tracking this down, we are going to be in this list for the shopping, and we're going to go ahead and jump through there. Okay. Okay, where are we? We are going to, let's check the process that it does. When we open set new mold defaults, that's the new mold, but that's not the reloading and putting data in here that's already selected for a particular mold. To do that, now this is where I know we did not have these pieces in place, because we need to teach it how to add a part to an existing mold, which is going to take a little bit of finesse. We have to be able to set those. First thing I'm going to work on is when we open the new mold piece, I want to populate those drop downs so that they have something there. Then we can worry about setting it to what they have, or when you pick something, saving it, then retrieving it back. So it's kind of has to be in that order. We need the list before we can tell it what to do with the list. So the first part is going to be looking at the actual code of what happens at that point when we right click and we select something. Open, I think it's open mold form. Let me see if I'm even in the right area. Yes, I am. There we go. This is what happens when we tell it to right click and open a mold. So from here, okay, open mold form, we are going to add, we have to add something in here so that we can react to it and tell it what to do. It's only going to be based on if we, there's a section in here, I know I already have it. Okay, we need it to be right here, and this is going to tell it what to do and when we open a new mold. So when we open the mold, we want to add some code. We need the plugins to be able to add that code. So for starters, every time that loads, we need to go into our plugin code. This is the plugin class. Where'd it go? Plugins class. And at the top of this, there's a section. And there it is. See how each one of these have a particular piece that loads up and drops JavaScript in for the for a different section of the page, and then based on what we pass to it using this is how it executes a particular piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a copy of one of the existing JavaScripts, and we're going to take this section here, and the name of the function that we're replacing is we just set it. I even know what it is. I don't want to mess this up. If I mess this up, it ends up being really hectic later on. So I'm going to bounce back and forth here a couple times. It is open mold form, and that means right here we're going to do plugins open mold form, and then we're going to pass some values to it. And in this case, I think the values that I want to pass is, first of all, if we pass the mold name, then, well, we're gonna double check that. Open mold form. We're gonna make sure we pass the mold name because that's important. We can derive everything else from the mold name if necessary. So that's the biggest key. But this is the name of the function we're creating. The plugins, and that's going to be here. And this doesn't need to return anything, so I'm not returning anything back from this. But what I want to do, mold name, and I guess everything else can be derived from that. We'll start with mold name, and if we need more, we may come back and revisit that. I don't even remember why I put that piece in place, because this is where we're really working it. Okay, so then this will be open mold form. I do it all lowercase, but it is technically this piece where we're importing it and putting it into place. So then from this over here, okay, from here we actually have the mold name, but it's this piece right here. Copy that. Is that part of, I want to double check. It may need to execute if it only finds it, which is, yeah, see if the mold IND is not blank. It means that we have a mold definition. If we don't have a mold definition, there's no use in processing it. So this plugin piece actually needs to happen before the end of that the end of that if statement. Now that puts it in place, and we have the mold name. So from here, we now have, as long as it has open mold form, we can create a function. And I'm going to create that in the, oops, it's JavaScript. We're going to do it in, oh, there it is in our shopping class. I'm going to go down to the bottom just so that I have a nice clean place to do this. Now I like copying the format so I don't mess up anything when I do it. So we'll copy the format. And then we're going to copy the closing tag with the catch piece on it. Keeps me from typing something wrong. And once we have that, we have the format for this, and we're going to call this open mold form, just like the name of the original, but by doing it this way, calling it the same name but it's under a different class, helps me keep them straight. If I see one here, I know that if I search for it here or if I search for it in the master site, I'm going to find the same function that's actually calling it, and I can see if there's other things I need to pass to it, if there's pieces that I need to use that I didn't before. But for this part, the main thing about it is I'm loading up the mold, and now I need to find out, does this particular piece, if a store is set for this item. If not, there's nothing to do. We don't load those areas if a store isn't set. So we'll go ahead and, okay, so the first part here is if community ID is not blank. Yeah, I guess I need to do this. These are a couple of my global variables. It's not equal blank and, or actually this should be or. It's only going to be one of them, so we need an or statement. In other words, if you haven't loaded either of these items, then there's nothing to do here, and you shouldn't even be in this section. ID is not equal blank. If any one of those values are there, then we're here. The next thing I need to check is, okay, I need a function for get store ID because, oh, you know something, it's not even going to run this class yet. Now that we have the name of the class in place, let's go ahead and put this in line so that we're actually executing this function. To do that, we have our hooks. I have all of them in place. See how we have add script function? I'm doing the same thing here. I'm going to add this, and in here it's going to be open mold form, which is the name of the item. That's where I'm putting it in the list. And then shopping, we're going to have open mold form. And finally, it passes mold name. Okay, so that now will make it execute when I open the mold form. So that's a good thing. Gets it all in place. And next. Okay, so that executes this piece, gets it in place, and I'm going to prove that first before we go any farther. Right here, I'm just going to spit out opened. Just the word opened in the column. That will prove that that piece is now in place. Kind of just walking through the code. And I will, yep, opened. It automatically grabbed it as soon as I did, and it's running that code. So now what I want to put in there is we have two pieces here. First thing is to get the data of this particular building piece, which we have not stored in the tables, and then but also pre-populating these lists. So first of all, let's go ahead and get the lists. To do that, I need to make sure that that we have the store loaded so that we can actually get that. It's going to be a couple stages, because the first thing we need to do is check to see if the store is loaded. If it's not, then we need to go get it, and then we need to come back and run the function that loads those lists based on the connection to the store. So it's a couple different pieces. We'll start by, first of all, we check that, and I know I'm talking my way through this. We need a couple functions. The first one is we have a number of things where we've already loaded this store's function. So I need to know, does the store function already have it downloaded? Because if it did, I don't need to go fetch it again. If it didn't, then I need to go fetch this information and add it to the list. So we're going to write a function for that. Okay. We're going to call this one check store. Check store ID. Do we know the ID? Before I do that, we have a function we've already done that gets the store ID, that adds it, this deletes it, cancel set store. Connect stores is where it did it. Set connect store. So I need to get connect store. Actually, this one grabs a dropout and sets it. Trying to think of where I'm tying it, and so far connect store ties it to the building, community, or thing. And if that's the case, then from there I need to think this one through very carefully. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. How's everyone doing today? I'm getting my brain started. I don't want to repeat steps that I've already done, so I'm being very cautious of how I do this. So what I need to do is I need to see if it's already loaded. If it was loaded, then it would have had to been in... There's a certain format I dropped them all into when I loaded them. Where is it? Oh. You know, it's when I get stores. When I get stores, I assign it directly to shopping stores. So if I check this function for I equals, okay, you know, this is where I'm going to get it. Okay, just thinking out loud. We're going to see if it's already loaded, and we're going to find out that part first. So we'll say var z found equals, let's say false, easy enough. Actually, okay, I'm just dropping this here just so I have something to work with. It's not exactly what I want it to be, but it's close. Okay, put that found before the try statement because no matter what, I want to return something even on error. So z found, and now I'm going to find out. This is the name of the array. If this array is not equal null, then we know we have the array. And from here, 3D stop shopping stores is not null, then I want to check, first of all, if, one more check, if this is dot store ID is not equal undefined, that will get us in the circumstance that we need to have and kind of double check that we have something. If the store ID is not undefined, then we basically have a function there. And we can check it, we can pull it, we can do different things with it. Okay, so we have this piece here. We're going to check a couple things, not just that one at this place, but the main thing that we need to see is, I don't need... Do I want to return the store ID? Yeah, you know what? Let's call it get store ID. And we're actually going to return the store ID. I don't see any reason to return a false and then have to go find it anyway. Or if we find true, then we still got to go find it. So, store ID. We should be returning more than just store ID. Let's return a function of handful of things here. This will give us a number of characters so that we can return not just the store ID. We need the whole spectrum. We need to know about this information. There's about 5 or 6 different pieces of it. We have store iframes. We have store URL. We have store category URL. We have store product URL, and then we have WooCommerce key and WooCommerce secret. That will be the file, the pieces that we need to track. So, getting those pieces in place, and then that's going to be what we return. We're gonna let me do it this way first. Then we'll put single quotes around them. getting all the pieces in place. I gave it a lot of leadway with the way I did these. Later on, we can actually read out of WooCommerce the permalinks, and then we can use the exact thing without having to ask them to tell us what the paths are to these particular items. You know, I think it's cart and not category, and then product URL. I'll double check that, but I think it is cart. Product URL and cart URL. Those are the ones we need. And then the secret. I'm going to put single quotes around these and get rid of the Z on the beginning. And let's do the beginning first and then catch the ends. Okay, we have this here, here, there, 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 and there. Now what we want to see is if. First thing we're checking is we need to know if it's the correct one for this particular item, which is a community, building, or thing. So community ID equals community ID, which could be blank, but that's okay. So we're going to do this with and. Do it 2 more times, and the last one's going to be thing. And we're going to also want to do that. So thing ID. And then building ID. Building ID. And finally community ID is there. If that happens, then we found the correct record, and we can set each one of these particular pieces to their counterpart, which means we have store ID equals actually we have it right there, and copy that. Store frames, iframes, store URL, and just the base store. You know something, I know I've missed one already. I can think of what it is. I'll double check it, but I do not have the API path URL. So we're going to double check these names and make sure we're getting all the pieces we need, because I definitely do not want to miss one of them. I think we're going to. This is the main part for getting this whole thing to work, is using these values to go fetch information from the other site. I was able to do it already using the using my old code, but now we've enhanced it. We've added some extra functionality, and there's 2 things here. If get store ID doesn't work, we'll do it that way. We're going to check these real quick. Okay, so when I go to get stores, which is part of this, or get store, that's where our lists are. So from here, we have URL, cart, product. That's the one I missed right there. We have WooCommerce URL. And that should sum up the rest of it for me. We're getting there, we're getting there. Okay, shopping, and it would be right here. Okay, there it is. Equals all that without the letter Z. This program is brought to you by the letter Z. And finally, we'll take that name and make sure we have it initiated at the beginning, and add it to this part. Get rid of the Z at the beginning. Okay, so now that should return it if it exists, and if it doesn't, then we need to go fetch it and tell it to return it anyway. So we're going to get store ID. We'll have to do this in 2 steps because we need to know if it has one and if it's loaded, otherwise fetch it, and then we do the processing of it afterwards. So we're going to do this in 2 steps. The first thing is var store info, put a Z so we know it's a local variable, is equal to wtw shopping dot, oops, sorry, not that. I thought I copied the other piece. Get store ID, and then I'm going to check if zStoreInfo dot does it mean that is a dangerous place to be, because I don't know if this one just didn't have a store or if it's been checked. I need to know if it was found. I got to be able to decipher between if it's already been checked to find out if it hasn't and just basically doesn't have a value because it doesn't exist, or if the value just needs to be pulled. Because if they don't have a value, then there's nothing to do here. We don't need to add another piece on this part. I can't determine that from if the store ID is blank, because if they didn't set a store ID to this, then maybe we shouldn't show this section at all. If there's no store ID, then we just hide this section. But, okay, we have a couple different conditions. We need to know that it was actually pulled and checked, and then we need to know that it was... Okay, so what we're going to do is... if it's not found, then this is what you get, because it's not found. I need to make sure it checks to see if it's found before it does it. I'm thinking. I know how we can do it. When we open it, this triggers once. So we're not going to get ourselves stuck in a loop if I do it this way. And that's kind of the main part here. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of tripping on myself for this part. So how's it going out there? Everybody having a good Sunday? Yeah. Okay, I need to think through this piece a little bit more, but in the meantime, notice what we have. We have a full-on 3D CMS if you haven't seen it before. It's kind of like I'm building over Babylon, so you can use Babylon code directly. You can also use WebGL for all that matters, but it's built over Babylon, so you can do all that stuff. I have multi-user. I have I have 10 different avatars to choose from. You can choose all their colors. You can choose over 10 different over 200 animations, or just about 200 animations for your avatars. So we have the basis set up, and what we're doing is we're modularizing the game components. So if you are great at making a certain thing, you can create it and actually create a plugin just like you do. WordPress creates plugins for traditional websites. We're doing the same thing with games, so that people that are great at something can actually create that one piece and we can drop it right in here. People that don't know how to code can actually just download the plugin, add it to the site, and basically get this other functionality right in the site just by turning it on. And in this case, I'm doing some 3D shopping functionality that connects it to WooCommerce stores, so you can have all your products in your 3D store. And also, I have the multiplayer things so far. We're building plugins, but we're also designing the way the plugins work so that other people can jump in and do it. So we're building the framework so that other people can create plugins, and hey, developers can make money at creating what they do best, the various components of games. You can also design full-on games. I've divided into 3 different parts. Your communities are your scenes. Your buildings are either an area within a scene or it can be an actual building. And then things are everything from your avatars, your vehicles, your furniture, your trees, and everything else that goes into a scene that you create assemblies of items and then drop them in. You can also go directly to Blender, and you can take your creations from Blender with animations and just drop them right into scenes. Using our media library functionality, we can actually go to 3D objects and take Babylon objects, which are directly exported from Blender with animations, upload them right in here, and add them directly into our scenes. To give you an example of that, let me actually show you a different building that I created. And I'm just building this. This is the start of the WalkTheWeb Club, as I call it. We're going to build this building out. This is actually inspired by the book Snow Crash. When they created their internet of the future, they had one of the places they had was a dome-shaped building, and what it did was it was the clubhouse where you'd go in and find different programmers, and there were sections of seating for different people and stuff. So you could go in there, find out who's there, go talk to other people, get answers, and kind of a free-for-all, so you can do anything you want. So I've created the structure of the building, and I just did that this week. So it'll evolve over time, but we're going to start adding things into this scene and seeing if we can't build it up and add some animation and add some objects. And different people that come in here are going to be able to add their own personal items to this building, so that all this becomes a hangout for all the programmers. I haven't built the scene that we're dropping this building into yet, but it's one step at a time. So if there's any questions along the way, I like to talk, I like to tell you about it, and I like to describe what I did or how I did it and what you can do with it. So at any time, jump in, ask a question. He won't be interrupting me, but just want to let you know that's what we're building, that's where we're going with this, and hey, I just keep on going on it. Also, it is open source, so everything you see me do here, I put it on GitHub. This thing, the link is down below the page here, so open source, like I said. You can download this code and you can host your own version of these 3D sites. Once you have a 3D site, one of the things you can do is you can actually just drop different things into the scene just by clicking on them. You can resize them, you can scale them, you can rotate the different items that you put in there, you can change the colors and orientation of them. You can also you can also come in here and change the textures that are on items. So if you decide you want to throw a texture on it, we gave you some sample images, but all kinds of cool stuff. You can create whatever you want, whatever you need to do. Using the CMS, you don't have to code, but if you are a coder, you can use Babylon directly. You can use you can use anything. So Babylon directly, you can use, you know, all the other pieces. You can go with Blender and import them. You can there's a lot of options. We can do any 3D modeling from something else because Blender allows you to import them into Blender and then export them as Babylon objects. So, but it's using Babylon, so that's the key behind whatever we're doing. And just so you know, this is designed to be an open type design implementation. So let's say you're building something for a customer. You could use this app instead of writing everything from scratch from Babylon. You can actually use this app to create it and drop it into the scene, but it gives them a tool to be able to manage their own websites. So it kind of gives you down, takes you down the list. You have all your user functionality. You have your different stuff like your scenes that you can create and stuff. There's a bunch that you can download so you don't have to create everything from scratch. Also, this is 3D. There's 2D. We go to 3D glasses. There's the poor man's 3D. And you can get your red and cyan glasses. I even sell them on my site. I think I give you a couple pairs for $5. But also, you can go VR headset. And we also support the generic VR headset with gamepad. The other thing is, Babylon is our gaming engine, and those are just different camera views with the functionality of how they work. Babylon already has about 8 different camera views, including Oculus and some of the major brands and stuff. So we're going to add them to the drop-down list, and you'll have more functionality in that area. We also have a scene camera, so as you're walking around, you can check it out in the scene camera, and you can also choose what view that particular camera gets, so that you can completely use that and the other camera. Yeah, it's all cool stuff. It's all cool stuff. Do as you like. Add to the code. Jump in at any time. It's open source. Give me suggestions. We'll throw it in there. Anything you like. It's all there. So yeah. So this is like WalkTheWeb is WordPress for 3D games. That's basically what I'm designing. Okay, so back to it. We're getting there. We're getting there. And okay, so now I'm working on this coding section. I'm kind of in a dilemma. It's kind of like a horse before the cart. I want to see if this is already loaded, but if it isn't, then I need to load it. But at the same time, I don't want to load it multiple times. So I just want to double check things and make sure that it's given the chance to load them, without repeating the process. I know that would tell me if I've already loaded it and not equal blank. Then basically we have a store and the store products, we could do something with it. Else, we can tell it what else to do. In this case, if it is the else term, then one of the things I want to do is I want to make sure, well, actually, that's going to happen more often than that. We'll get back to that. These parts here should have automatically happened, and that didn't happen, so I'm going to find out why. So if it's not one of those options, it should hide those particular pieces. I need to make sure that code worked. Because when I opened a box, it was basically already showing that section on the screen, and it shouldn't. So, a couple little pieces. Oh, you know what? That might be because... Oh, no, that should work. Yeah, I'll find out. I'm going to check that. Okay. And just bouncing off a couple different areas here, but... Okay, well, it looks like I need to do some more prep. I need to look in this. I need to check, see. There's not a clear path for me to follow right now for the coding end of it. I need to make sure that certain things are loaded when we load places, and there might be a better place to load this to make sure that my stores that I currently have are already loaded at this point in time so that I can just use them without having to reload it. By doing that, it would make it a lot faster and a lot smoother, and it wouldn't keep on making random calls out when it doesn't need to keep on doing them over and over again. So I probably have to add another hook or two, but I'm going to do a little investigation before I do that. You might see me again later on today. Otherwise, you're going to see me tomorrow morning. But I hope you have a great day, and I want to thank you for watching and thank you for joining me. I'm going to keep coding, and we're going to see if we can't get this stuff all into place. By the end of the week, I think we're going to have all this store functionality working and going. So that's the plan. That's the timeline. And make sure you follow me so you know when I'm online. And I'll definitely keep on plugging away at it. But thank you for following me, and we'll see you again soon.